So we've just had the qualifying for the Canadian Grand Prix and it always delivers. I've said that in the preview, didn't I? And what a brilliant qualifying session we had. Q1 where it all cracked off. Initially we had Zhou Guanzu go out, cause the red flag, then got going again and wasn't needed that red flag. It was a wet track with inters, steady rain throughout that session, and it was Zhou Guanzu who actually went out in P20, even though he did get going again and managed to come round, but just didn't have the pace. He was struggling anyway all weekend round here. Logan Sargent in 19th place, Nick De Vries 18th, Pierre Gasly 17th, and Yuki Tsunoda 16th, and the star in that session, Alex Albon, P6. It was Verstappen leading by Alonso and then Hamilton behind for 1, 2 and 3 in that session. And it was a poor performance from Gasly. Was really disappointed, but it was really the impeding of Carlos Sainz, which actually probably cost him going out in that session. And I am expecting some sort of penalty for Sainz, sadly, Ferrari fans, on that one. He was just in the middle of no man's land at the end, just before the chicane, going on to the start-finish straight, going slowly, trying to get a place for his warm-up lap. But there was some probably leniency there for him, because it was an AlphaTauri on the inside and he sort of moved to let him pass and went wide, and that caused no space for Gasly. But he was going so slow with so many cars coming up fast behind him. His team should have really been on his case and telling him, look, we need to get moving, but he didn't. And then into Q2 was a wild session. It was a drying track now we had, and it was 15th place for Bottas in the end, but he was looking solid so far in the weekend, but he'll be happy to beat his teammate and try and get ahead of that, and hopefully a better result in the race for him tomorrow. Then Kevin Magnussen in 14th place, Lance Stroll in 13th. He'll be disappointed for his home race this weekend. He'd probably hope to do better than that. Sergio Perez, shocker in P12. Just really struggled, was on the wrong tyre it seemed throughout that session, on the inters when he probably needed to be on the softs, and then on the softs, and then went back onto the inters when the rain started coming a bit more. And same with Charles Leclerc. He was really angry at his team, wasn't he? He was in the garage as well, going right to the back saying, well, what were you playing at? Apparently there was some tyres weren't ready in time, and that just cost him in the end. And the star in that one was Alex Albon, who actually was first in that session in the Williams. I was hoping for a strong race weekend for him, as I said in the preview, and he delivered in Q2, didn't he? Really brave, one of the first ones out on the softs on the drying track, and really made it count. Caught the perfect window before the rain came down again, got to grips with the first sort of tentative lap, and then pushed, and brilliant result in that session. And Lando and Norris followed him in that one as well, but it was Albon, Verstappen and Norris in the 1, 2 and 3 in Q2. Shockers from both Perez and Leclerc, but it'll be exciting to see them two come through the field tomorrow. Then into Q3, and then we had a wet track again now as the rain fell between the start of Q2 and Q3, and it was back onto the inters, and then we got a red flag about 4 minutes into that session, with Piastri hitting the wall, and sadly bringing his session to an end. But then actually by the time the red flag cleared and there was back onto racing conditions, anyone that set their first lap was pretty much the fastest conditions of the circuit, because the rain came down heavier, bringing the session to a premature close. And Alex Albon, sadly he didn't get a timeout run when it was in the best conditions, and he'll start P10. I think he'll be slightly disappointed just not to get that Q3 run. I'm not sure if they were just holding out to do one run in that session, but I'm not sure why they didn't take that early. I think he'll be a bit disappointed with that. Piastri actually keeps his 9th place despite hitting the wall. Carlos Sainz in 8th place. He'll be disappointed with that. And you know, an 8th and 11th start for Ferrari, and it potentially could get worse with potential impeding in penalties for Sainz. I'd be surprised if he doesn't get a 3-second or a 3-place one for that one. Lando Norris in 7th, good performance from him in that McLaren. Ocon in 6th place, George Russell for 5th in the Mercedes. Then ahead of his team, behind his teammate Lewis Hamilton, 4th. They would be really happy actually, Mercedes. I think they weren't getting their car into the operating window in these wet tyres. They were struggling to get the temperature into them, and they were probably expecting worse than what they've got. Fernando Alonso in third place, and a surprise and a brilliant session. Nico Hulkenburg for the Haas team, P2. Come on, lad. He always makes it count. Haas team just take advantage in these mixed conditions. Probably someone Ferrari need to look at and say, look, what are they doing when these conditions are where they are? Because it's the second or third time now. We've seen Brazil last year. We've seen earlier in the season already that Haas taking advantage, getting into the, right at the front in these mixed conditions. And Nico Hulkenburg will start in Haas's highest grid position for a start, in second place, front row of the grid for them. Absolutely brilliant, mega. I know they're probably looking behind them for the race, but if they can hold on and get some points here, it'd be a brilliant result for them. And it is Max Verstappen on pole. His first run in that session was absolutely brilliant. He's on pole by 1.2 seconds, and I think that is slightly flattering considering that other cars didn't get their runs out. But he was brilliant throughout that session, always there. First out, got the lap in when it counted, a decent lap at that, and that got him the pole position. I can't see anything but for him to run off with the race tomorrow. But we've got a brilliant race lined up, haven't we? Alonso right up behind Verstappen. Obviously he's got Hulkenberg ahead of him, but how can that Hulkenberg in that Haas hold on? How far can he hold on for? It'll be brilliant. Potentially a completely different conditions in the race for tomorrow. We are looking at a dry day tomorrow in the race, and that might actually suit the two Mercedes who line up 4th and 5th, and they'd be probably hoping for that, and they would be in a nice old battle with the Aston Martins. And like I said, we've got Perez and Leclerc who are out of position coming back through the field, and Lance Stroll actually in 13th place. Even Gasly back 17th, though. He's got a decent Alpine car that should come through the field. So a mixed grid for Canada. We always get a brilliant race. Please join tomorrow. It will be a fantastic race. Thanks very much for watching. Please like, subscribe and comment as always. I'll see you tomorrow.